Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. How are you? Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, now we will come to today's news. Really interesting, share this everywhere. Trump defeats in the latest presidential poll Biden-Harris in 2024. Matchups. This is the Hill just now. Former President Trump leads President Biden, Vice President Harris in hypothetical 2024 matchups, according to a new Harvard Capps-Harris poll survey released Friday exclusively to The Hill. 46% of those surveyed said they would choose Trump over Biden if 24 were held today, compared to 41% who said they would support the current president. 13% were unsure or didn't know that Trump has to get that 13% to secure to regain the Oval Office. He also needs to make peace somehow with state parties, especially state parties in Georgia and Arizona. But these polls consistently show that Trump is either battling or ahead. Okay. And he defeats Harris by a wider margin, also 49% to 39%. He also defeats Buttigieg in primary matchups by a wide margin as well. 42% 36%, that's another poll. So you have to take things you have to ask yourself, well, Trump is leading in polls, even in hypothetical 24 matchups, with the current president match against the current president, mashed potato brains, and that is with everything leveled against him, a special counsel leveled against him, a second special counsel leveled against him. Biden has won, but that's more to try and shield and block any requests from Jim Jordan and James Comer. And by the way, the Durham probe lives on with James Comer and Jim Jordan. Okay, I'm gonna continue doing work on that. Things are going to heat up. We're going into 2023 as the lead up to 24. We are heading into 2024. And it's going to be pretty amazing. This is going to be a very, very interesting next 2 years, especially in terms of, well, nothing's ever gonna happen. It's never going to be any justice. Well, we're seeing what's taking place. It's taking a long time. But the Durham probe was transformed into the weaponization panel by Jim Jordan, James Comer and others. We will see impeachment of Biden. We will see almost certainly Hillary Clinton regaining the 24 nomination for the Democratic Party. Okay, unfortunately, we're going into another stock market crash or another downturn in the market. The entire American political system realizes that if they don't control every single narrative, okay, they cannot defeat Trump. There's no possibility of defeating Trump if they don't have absolute control of the media message. Ladies and gentlemen, is greatly appreciated. But he has had everything leveled against him. There are only negative stories about Trump. Almost every publication from the Washington Post to the Times to MSNBC, CNN, Vanity Fair, Esquire, Rolling Stone, Daily Beast, Vice, BuzzFeed, The Nation, you only have The Atlantic, New Yorker, New York Magazine, Time Magazine, and you have Los Angeles Times, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You have every single publication out there has this contempt for Trump, and still, he is up in 24 polls. Why do you think that is? Well, obviously it's because people understand. People realize what's taking place. And some significant news. Now a group that had many members at the Capitol during the Stop the Steal rally on January 6 of 2021 have said that they did not know Trump and have never met him or were asked to cause problems or go into the Capitol. Still, several have been jailed or tied up in court cases. Now the leader of the Proud Boys says he plans to subpoena Donald Trump and have him come to court and testify that they've never met, and that he did not instruct their group to carry out a pre-planned coordinated attack on the Capitol. However, because Donald Trump is a former U.S. president, he has 24-hour-a-day Secret Service. And he's impossible to get around unless Trump wants you to be around him. So the Proud Boys leader is asking the Department of Justice to serve documents to the president in order to force him to testify on their behalf. Now if this is true, and it seems that it is, you would think Donald Trump would want to clear his name as not being attached or having a pre-coordinated plan to attack the Capitol, but I'll continue to keep you updated on that story. Many Americans are having a hard time trusting Joe Biden when it comes to the Chinese spy balloon situation and shooting down 3 mystery objects over the country that to this day, we still know nothing about. It led Americans to feel scared under attack or if they could be being invaded by UFOs or a foreign nation. If they do end up being small balloons, they're also saying, Why are we sending up $100 million jet that cost $1 million to fly and sent and then shooting down objects with $400,000 rockets or missiles? So either way, people are saying, listen, you did not handle this well, but let me know. What do you think? Did President Biden do the right thing? Or did he handle this wrong? And they kind of panicked? Okay. Now Vice President Mike Pence reacted to the latest briefing from Joe Biden on the topic. He said, I would characterize the president's press conference as too little too late. I mean, to have the president address this issue 2 weeks after this captured the nation's attention with the first balloon is just unacceptable. Now speaking of Mike Pence, a deep dive search was done on his other properties in office, and no other classified documents were found. Now really quick, I just read yesterday a super fascinating report on how Russia, China and Saudi Arabia are working to destroy the United States dollar and its position as the world's reserve currency. I think it's something that everybody should really read. So I'm going to leave a link to the PDF down below. It's totally free. You can go in and read, but I found it to be very, very interesting how they are coordinating their attack on the dollar around the world. Now, President Biden has also just gone through his annual physical, where he gets determined whether he's fit to be in office or not. The result of the physical was that he would have mental disabilities and be unable to lead the nation. However, according to Biden's own physician, he remains a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old male capable of being the president. Now, speaking of health issues, twice, I told you about how Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania had checked himself into the hospital for health issues. He had a stroke before the election, but his wife and his political party pressured him to keep campaigning despite his negative health. His health is literally falling apart. He's now checked himself into the hospital for a third time, this time for clinical depression. They say that they want to keep him for several weeks, because it's so bad. Now I hope he can get the help that he needs. But my gut tells me the kind of pressure it takes to be a sitting senator is not good for a human brain that has gone through a major stroke. But I'm not a doctor, and I've never pretended to be one. World-famous podcaster Joe Rogan has verbally reprimanded Biden's transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg over comments he made regarding construction workers. Buttigieg stated that neighborhoods of color often have white construction workers building their infrastructure. The point he seemed to be making was that companies should be providing people of color opportunity to build their own infrastructure. However, Joe Rogan stated that's skilled labor, like you have to hire people that are really good at that. And if they don't exist in that community, you have to hire outside of that community. If you see what happens when you have unskilled labor and unskilled people working on buildings, it's an effing disaster. Now, Rogan stated that Buttigieg showed a profound lack of understanding of skilled labor by making these comments. Increasing number of people are saying Pete Buttigieg is simply not qualified to be handling the transportation nor the infrastructure rebuild of the United States. But I'd like to know from you, what do you think? Is Pete Buttigieg doing a good job? Just does. Is he making this about race when it should be about skill set? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But this was a big story. I mean, we just had an earthquake that's killed over 25,000 people in Turkey. And they're saying the number one cause for the problem is that it was bad craftsmanship on the buildings that crushed people. So I think Joe Rogan may have a point here. Now under Pete Buttigieg leadership we've had multiple shipping and trucking delays, multiple railroad strikes, collapsed bridges, airline issues, and exploding trains that derail. Now I'm not saying that this is all his fault, or even that he caused it. I'm just pointing out ever since his leadership, there's just been problem after problem after problem. Now Buttigieg was also just blasted for his lack of action in Ohio after a train derailed and exploded with vinyl, toxic chemicals all over the land. And despite these toxins, killing animals, and making humans in the area very sick, there was very little direction from the government or from Buttigieg's office on what to do. People have started to joke online that Ohio needs to immediately rename East Palestine City to the name Ukraine. That way the US government will actually care and send them money and help. Now Senator Marco Rubio called for Buttigieg to resign. He said it's just been too many problems back to back. And he refused to acknowledge the disaster in East Palestine, Ohio. And until his intentional ignorance is over, he wants him out of office. Now I don't think he's going to step down. None of them are stepping down. The border guy's not stepping down. This guy's not stepping down. Fauci never stepped down. And by the way, did you see this is hilarious? Buttigieg actually tried to blame the train derailment and explosion on Donald Trump. He said that a small policy change made during the Trump era could have caused the train to derail and explode, leaving toxic chemicals all over the place. However, Buttigieg, his own White House bosses told him take responsibility, do your job and stop spreading misinformation. Now the White House has had to step forward in Buttigieg's place and have now promised to send out a large toxicology team in order to do a thorough analysis to make sure that the area is safe. Somebody from the EPA was saying the water's so good here, I let my own kids drink it. Meanwhile, you have people showing water and it's literally like blue gross dew. You should definitely not be drinking the water until they bring in this toxicology team. Vice President Kamala Harris is finally speaking in public regarding world issues after largely being silent for most of her vice presidency. During an interview with MSNBC, VP Harris stated, "What Russia is doing is forcibly an attempt to change borders, through acts of aggression, that are not simply about attrition, but our war crimes. And we take serious these issues." Now, although I'm glad to see Harris finally stepping forward out of the shadows, and in playing the role of vice president having an opinion on these things, it's pretty obvious that she believes somebody forcing themselves on your border is a war crime. And yet, when it comes to the United States border, she's silent. Like we're being invaded every single day. And yet, she's more worried about Russia invading Ukraine's borders than she is about the United States. Now, I find it interesting that she would say Russia is trying to change Ukraine by not respecting their borders, but it's weird how much she knows and cares about Ukraine's border, but knows relatively little about our own border. Now, I spoke privately last week with someone very high up in the US military. And he confided in me that the crisis at the southern border is much worse than you can even imagine. And because of that, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy visited the southern border earlier this week with a group of Republicans. And earlier today, Representative Hakeem Jeffries was shown around the border by Representative Henry Cuellar, who has been begging his own party to please help us at the southern border. So it's good to see the top Republican leader and the top Democrat leader finally going to the border to see what they can do to be helpful. Now Republicans vow to investigate the southern border and impeach Department of Homeland Security head Alejandro Mayorkas if they found evidence of dereliction of duty after 5 million illegal immigrants escaped into the country. Now, though, only 100 by Yorkists is saying that Republicans have weaponized the House of Representatives and that they are just trying to impeach him for political reasons, that he's done nothing wrong. In fact, he's done a great job at the border. But let me know what you think. Is this the weaponization of the House of Representatives to go after him for being a Democrat, or for doing a terrible job at the border? Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your thoughts below and hit